Well, France 24's Andrew Hilliar is in Rio de Janeiro for us. He joins us now live. Andrew, it was a momentous night in Brazilian politics, but it ultimately wasn't quite the results that Lula had hoped for.
Yeah, I mean, both candidates are going to be claiming this as a victory of sorts. I mean, you've got Lula, who is only one victory away from the presidency, poised to make a remarkable political comeback. But of course, it's a bittersweet victory because he didn't get the more than 50% of the votes that he would have needed to claim outright victory in the first round and avoid a second round runoff at the end of the month with Jair Bolsonaro. And then you've got Bolsonaro, who going into this election had been trailing Lula by at least 10% in most of the opinion polls, closing the gap to 5%. So remarkable story, really. And now it all boils down to this, a real presidential duel, a clash of the titans, if you will, between the outspoken nationalistic Jair Bolsonaro and his arch nemesis, the left-wing former president Lula.
Morning in Brazil, the campaign is set to resume in earnest. Lula has vowed to fight all the way to victory.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Lula speaking last night after those results were announced. He gave quite an upbeat, jovial speech. He joked that he'd have to put his honeymoon on hold. He said it was a mere delay, a hiccup on his way to the presidency. But either way you look at it at this point in time. It's already a stunning comeback for Lula, the man who, at the end of his first two terms in office, left the presidency with sky-high approval ratings, only to wind up in jail 4 years ago after being convicted of corruption. So he only actually got the go-ahead to run for the presidency this year, last year. So and now he's only one victory away from winning. An election here and being and returning to the seats of power.
Yeah, meanwhile, as you mentioned, it was a much better result than expected for Jair Bolsonaro. He claims his numbers mean that they beat the lie of election polling.
Yeah, I mean, Bolsonaro, in his typical defiant tone. I think in the aftermath of the election yesterday, when he spoke to reporters, he didn't look triumphant at all, given the result. But he definitely was defiant. He rejoiced in the fact that he'd proven the pollsters wrong in a way that was very reminiscent of something Donald Trump would say. There were some angry exchanges between Bolsonaro and the journalists present. And then something else Bolsonaro did is that he repeated again those baseless claims, those baseless allegations that Brazil's electronic voting system may be vulnerable to vote rigging and to fraud. Now, that's something he's done throughout the election campaign, if you will, trying to kind of cast doubt on the trustworthiness of the voting system. It's all done electronically. Most neutral observers have applauded that voting system for serving Brazil's democracy well for the better part of a quarter century. But the fear is if Bolsonaro continues over the next 4 weeks to cast doubt on its reliability, that perhaps he's laying the ground to not accept the election results if, as expected, Lula does win.
France 24's Andrew Hilliar reporting there live from Rio de Janeiro. A reminder to our viewers, round 2 of that election takes place on October 30th.